discussed in the meeting this evening. First of all, can I agree to sign off the minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of February?
Very good.
Apologies for absence.
Councillor Lomax, Councillor Shepperton, Councillor Randall will be late.
Councillor Randall late. Any other apologies for well? Declarations of members' interest, can you declare it now or at the time of the item on the agenda? Thank you. The first substantive item tonight, strategic planning issues. Statements of community involvement, Councillor James.
Thank you, Chairman. The purpose of this is to consider the responses to the consultation exercise on the draft review of the statement of community involvement. As you're aware, all local planning authorities have to have a statement of community involvement. Our original SCI was prepared in 2006 and revised in 2012, and this is the first major revision. The response is fairly straightforward. It's how we involve residents and other interested parties in planning matters, planning applications, and so on. And we do stick by that. No things to say about it.
Thanks to Councillor James. Comments, observations? If not, are you happy to agree the three recommendations? Good. Conservation area, Upper and Lower Harleston. Councillor James.
Yes, Upper and Lower Harleston. The original Harleston Conservation Plan related only to Lower Harleston. That was prepared, or was designated, and that was on there as 1972, and then revised in 97. The current proposal, this is the result matter, includes Lower Harleston and Upper Harleston too. Upper Harleston may have benefited in the past from being closer to the closer towards Thorpe Park, so it might have had some limited protection there. But now it's proposed to put the two Harlestons together in the new designation, and there is a management plan attached to the conservation area of Fraser. Now, currently the district has 24 conservation areas. Harleston is one of those that was chosen first because it lies nearest to Northampton. Northampton being under pressure from development, it's as well to have an up-to-date conservation area plan for those closest to Northampton borders. Malton will fall into the same category, but I'll come on to the next item. What have we got here? Yes, the management plan suggests, it makes a suggestion of what is known as an Article 4 direction, which would have the effect, if it were implemented, of controlling development of things like windows, porches, doors, etc., and so on. It would have the effect of limiting permitted development rights. Now, it's only a suggestion at this stage. That, of course, would involve further procedures if it were implemented. And it is important to note, as I'm sure the Chairman of the Planning Committee, Councillor Osborne, is well aware, that we're talking about conservation, not preservation. It's about managing the area to enhance it in future years and future. Now, as far as consultation goes, there has been an initial meeting between officers and the parish council. There has in fact been an exhibition which was held on Tuesday the 17th of January, alerting local people as to the awareness of this project. The next stage, which is what this result item is about, is a formal consultation on the draft conservation area documents. It will be a 6-week consultation period, and then it will be held at a public meeting which will be incorporated into the Halston Parish Council meeting taking place on the 4th of April 2017. Now, in addition to the mention of an Article 4 direction, I'd also like to make mention that some of the buildings in the proposed conservation area fall short, so they're not included as officially listed buildings. Nevertheless, it is proposed that a local list of buildings of interest that might enhance the area be prepared so that they might be afforded a little bit extra protection than they would have if they were left alone. So there will be, and there is indeed, a small list of properties contained within the management plan of properties that would be included in a local list. Obviously, all of this depends upon the result of the consultation, and of course it will have to go up before strategy committee again after that consultation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor James. And of course, this area is subject to lots of housing growth. This is about protecting existing, the good bits of existing, and obviously making sure that the new housing developments hopefully can match in a fairly compatible way where possible. So thanks for that. Open to comments or observations. Councillor Hills.
Yeah, having looked at this, I think it certainly makes sense to combine upper and lower housing. I mean, they are in such close proximity. I think that certainly makes sense. I know the area fairly well because I was quite friendly with our late councillor Ken May, who lived there, and so
Wife still does.
quite a bit. The only area that I'm not quite sure, and perhaps need a little bit of more explanation, it says controlling development with regard to the alteration of windows, doors, porches, windows, and demolishing walls. Is that going to be play a major part in planning or not? That's the area that I want to ask about.
Okay.
Well, it won't stop anyone doing that. What it really says is if you want to do this, you have to apply for planning permission.
Got to get planning permission.
And it may well be the case that the planning officers will come up with some suggestion as to an alternative. But yes, it will have that effect.
Because there's quite a bit of sort of elderly property there. And I heard that you say that it's not all listed, but also knowing some of the others that are there, they're very often will put windows or want to put windows and doors in. I didn't want it to be too restrictive, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Hills. Councillor Paul.
And of course, sorry, may I mention, if you have to apply for planning permission to do that, then of course you won't have to pay a fee.
Thanks for that, Councillor James. Councillor Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I would like to congratulate the report author on both of these reports. Absolutely excellent. I can't wait until we have a Daventry conservation area update. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Steve. Councillor Charter.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, for permitting me to speak. It's a general observation. As the Council's heritage champion, I obviously welcome the idea of a local list of positive buildings, as they're called in this document, which have a positive effect on the background, which don't merit formal listing. But I would ask that some consideration be given to the colour coding on the map, because I can't distinguish between the two colours.
Councillor
Page 49.
Yeah.
Councillor Councillor Charter.
Sorry?
The Councillor.
Thank you.
Any other comments, observations?
Oh, it is difficult to see.
Yeah. Okay, so on that basis, are you happy to accept the two recommendations as resolved items, these are, by the way, resolved items?
Yes.
Before it goes out to consultation? Are you happy to accept these?
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillor James, your next one is conservation area at Malton.
Yes. And once again, it's certainly a resolved item. Malton Conservation Area was originally designated in 1979 and was reviewed in 1997. Once again, the report contains an appraisal and a management plan with, again, a suggestion of Article 4 directions. Now, although it's a conservation area in Malton, it is the regional historic core of Malton that we're talking about, not the bits on the periphery which descend into groups of bungalows and campsites, the old ones and so on, or other parts. It's the core area of Malton that we're talking about. So again, there is a local list of buildings which don't quite come up to the requirements for listing, but nevertheless are important buildings as far as the conservation area is concerned. The suggestion of an Article 4 direction applies again in respect of windows, doors, porches, demolishing walls, rendering and so on. I might add that an Article 4 direction does not require the approval of the Secretary of State as well. But of course there will be further procedures if that's what the local residents is content with. There will be further procedures, and again it will have to come back to strategy to be discussed after the consultation. So I think the comments more or less the same. There has been initial involvement of officers, discussions with parish council representatives. If strategy agrees to a formal consultation, it's intended that the public meeting would be held at Malton Parish Council meeting on the 4th of April 2017. And I think that's all I have to say.
Thanks very much indeed, Councillor James. It's good, obviously, this council's always been very keen on conservation.
Yes.
And good to see in the introduction there that we currently have 24 conservation areas. And the council's now undertaken an appraisal project to assess their condition and possibly designate new areas. I think that's a good confidence to the public that we're actually trying to preserve our rural area and also our heritage in this district.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any comments or observations? Councillor Warren, your local ward member, one of the local ward members. Thank you.
I'd just like to state that I think it's a very, very comprehensive document and a very informative one as well. And I think it needs to be congratulated.
Thank you indeed for that. There's two result items for you. Yeah, you have to set those result items. Thank you. Let's see what the consultation responses are. Thank you, Councillor James. It's really done tonight. The next item is the House and Environmental Health Issues, the Smoke and Carbon Monoxide Alarm Regulations 2015, Status and Principles. Councillor Warren.
Thank you, Chair. This report is intended to support the introduction of a state of principles that is required to be published to allow DDC to apply penalty charge notices under the Smoke and Carbon Monoxide Alarm England Regulations 2015. Landlords within the private rented sector have a legal responsibility to maintain their properties in a good, safe and state of repair. The Smoke and Carbon Monoxide Alarm England Regulations 2015 require all landlords to install smoke alarms on every floor of private residential accommodation. The Statement of Principles, once agreed and published, will allow the Environmental Improvement Service to penalise landlords who frequently fail to comply with the regulations. Any landlord issued with a penalty charge notice will have already received or been given 28 days to comply with statutory requirements by issuing a remedial notice. The financial penalty should be set at an amount to ensure that these that those landlords who fail to comply with the law are sufficiently penalised. We should also aim to issue penalties in line with other Northamptonshire authorities to ensure that landlords receive consistent messages where possible. I therefore ask that it be recommended to agree the adoption and publication of the Statement of Principles as attached in Appendix 1 of this report.
Thank you, Councillor Warwick. You've got the recommendation before you, committee. Are there any comments or observations first? Councillor Griffin.
Could I ask, Chairman, if we have many HMOs in the district?
Maria?
We have something like 120 already registered.
Yeah.
We know that with the change of regulations that's going to happen very soon, that we could easily have at least another 100 straight away, and probably more that we haven't come across. So it's an increasing, growing thing.
Will we be able to deal effectively and reasonably quickly?
With the existing ones.
But what about the ones that how do they just come to light? Are they reported?
They are required to register,
Yeah.
but we can also identify them. For example, if you've got multiple housing benefit claims in one address,
Yeah.
that can be an indication
Yeah.
if they're not related parties.
Do we have many difficulties with insisting upon this compliance in these HMOs?
It's just for clarity, this is actually for all private rented
I
housing.
realise that, but I'm more concerned about the HMOs.
Not particularly. It is something we're putting more resources into investigating.
Oh, good. All right. Thank you, Mary.
Thanks, Councillor Griffin. Councillor Organ.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to speak. It was just, I'm all for penalty charges and ensuring that we have a stick as well as educating and encouraging people to do the right thing. But I was just wondering, how is this enforced? Do we have, once a fault has been identified, do we have a power of entry after 28 days if they don't allow us access? How does that follow-up work?
Officers will already have been in the property and identified what needs doing.
Yeah.
So they would have been let in more than likely by the tenants, because that will be where the reporting is coming from. In fact, this is not a fixed penalty notice, so we're not just penalty. This is different. This is a penalty charge notice.
Okay.
So we will receive that money because we would have arranged for the works to be done. So we'll pay for that and a bit more besides to comfortably cover that.
All right, so once we identify the fault, we ensure it gets done.
Because it's vitally important that it's done, because that's actually a very important safety issue. Yeah, so we will make sure it's done by doing it. We'll have contractors ready to move.
So really, nobody should be in breach of it if we're actually enforcing it by getting the work done.
They get 28 days to do it. If they haven't done it, we'll do it and
All
start
right.
them with a fixed
Okay,
penalty.
and then we fix penalty.
Yeah, so it's not to be confused with a fixed penalty.
Okay, so with regard to that, how do we establish they haven't done it? Do we have a power of entry to check that?
Yes.
We do.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Organ. Councillor Paul.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Houses of multiple occupancy that are starting to become more prevalent, will this be added into the conditions on a planning application?
It's outside the planning regime, Councillor
It
Paul,
is?
so,
Oh,
but it
okay.
will be covered by licensing.
Right, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Councillor Wesley.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a question on the legislation, really. Is legislation sort of expandable to the likes of us as a district council? I'm talking really around the carbon monoxide alarms, because it says here solid fuel levels, I think, in the room in question. I mean, is it ever possible to expand that as a part of the safety notice to sort of say that it has to be a little bit more expansive than that? Because the experience would say that, well, not my experience, but experience of unwanted deaths that we do hear about. Carbon monoxide doesn't contain itself to one room and is pervasive throughout the property.
The legislation is requiring people to put the smoke monitors in. But
No, I'm talking about carbon monoxide.
carbon monoxide, they're not a requirement in the
Yeah, that's what I'm
legislation, so
saying.
we cannot go beyond the legislation.
Can we
Encourage.
literature recommend it and sort of
Yeah.
say,
We
you know,
couldn't
this
have a
council
policy
would
that goes
support-
beyond that.
Okay. You can encourage the point you're making.
Yeah, encourage and support
Encourage
the
it.
use of carbon monoxide alarms,
Because
because
that's a silent killer, isn't it, carbon monoxide?
absolutely, it's
Yeah.
something you can't see it coming, you don't know it's happening to you.
It's just to clarify, it's a requirement where you've got solid fuel, but not for,
The solid fuel.
you know,
What I'm saying is, I think as a council, we should probably try and promote the use of some sorts of alarms in that accommodation, and actually everywhere, to be perfectly honest.
that's the sort of publicity campaign we could do alongside this.
British Gas are very keen on this actually, aren't they?
they
Carbon
always suggest
offside,
that.
they recommend it, don't they? Something you could do alongside them, I don't know. Thank you for that. Councillor Paul, you don't say.
Yeah, I think Councillor Warren may be able to inform us regarding registered providers, because I think it's part of their requirement to fit carbon monoxide alarms. Councillor Warren will obviously know the answer.
I think it's a statutory requirement now as it is.
For what, sorry?
Registered providers,
Yeah.
I think within their tenancy agreements, they provide carbon monoxide detectors.
This, I believe that's the case and has been for some time, but this specific legislation
Yeah.
is just for
I'm
private.
just answering Councillor.
Private landlords, thank you. Councillor Connors.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2 points. The first one is quite apt, I think. On page 126, it clearly states that this will form a multi-authority. So the idea is obviously if somebody's a landlord, they've got property in different areas, there'll be somewhere collecting that information in case somebody defaults, which I think is excellent. The big thing about this, of course, is if somebody does default and if they are actually charged a penalty, will that be made public knowledge? Because that should really be made public knowledge, I think.
As a matter of routine, we do publicise any successful prosecutions, so
Yeah.
I don't see any reason why we wouldn't do that.
Because obviously they've got people living with them, and
Absolutely.
why would you want to stay with something like that?
It would certainly encourage other tenants to come forward and say,
Yeah,
my property needs some attention.
thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hill.
Yeah, just to give it a bit of thought that we're talking about private landlords. So, for example, private landlord or somebody who's having a house demolished and for a temporary measure they're living in, say, a static van, which carbon monoxide is very threatening in a static van. Do we have any powers or authority over that?
Not within this legislation. And you're talking about an owner-occupier.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, it's, there's no legislation that requires owner-occupiers to put any monitors in that. It's responsible for that. So this is about landlords, selling of the service and making sure that's as safe as possible.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Councillor Hill. Anything want to add, Councillor Warren? You just have to put the recommendation forward. Thank you. Agree, committee? Agreed. Good. I come on to increase in planning fees by 20%. Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Chairman. Wonderful government is asking different authorities if they would like to increase their planning fees by 20% so that we become more efficient in giving planning permissions out and everything. And we will get more income. Having more income, it has to be spent on staff and things to help the planning system work. The reply has to be given by, I think it's March the 13th. So we are asking the strategy group that this council would like to participate in increasing its planning fees by 20%, and that would allow in the future staff to organise what additional staff or parts would be required in the planning department or whatever to assist making taking higher money in fees. And we also have to let the government know if we're doing so as well. I think the 151 officer has to let them know. I think that's it, Chairman. Very simple. So we're asking this council participate in a fee increase of 20%.
And that's the decision, result item decision.
Yeah, it has to be done because it's got to be in the
deadline,
days' time.
Thank you, Councillor Osborne. And I have to say we have a very busy planning department, so obviously it's very important that we resource it up to the right levels to deal with the applications we have. Comments or observations? Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Chairman. Over the last couple of years or so, I have been attending a number of planning seminars run by the Town Planning Association and RICS. This subject is always raised by representatives from local authorities. We could do a quicker job processing planning if we had more staff, but you won't let us put the fees up. They come up with a ridiculous idea, well, in my view, it's a ridiculous idea of saying, well, you can do other people's planning and charge them what you like. But I didn't see how that was possibly worked, so I welcome this as coming through, and I'm glad that the feeling seems to be amongst members of strategy that we should resolve to do this.
Thanks indeed, Councillor Chandler. Thank you for that. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to comment. I think it's very attractive when government says that, you know, here is a way in which we can have relatively painlessly get some more money. But I've always been under the impression that we have prided ourselves on our planning services, on their efficiency. And if that's the case, if this is money tied to, you know, to enhancing that service, I don't know just exactly what it is that we're going to spend the money on. I can entirely accept the view that if money is an offer, it seems rather foolish to turn it down. But does this actually mean that we are going to be charging people more? And if we're going to charge people more, I think that we have got to have strong grounds as to what better service that they are going to get, why it makes sense in terms of delivering the service to charge more, rather than the reason for charging more merely being, well, it was an offer from government.
Okay, I'll ask Councillor Osborne to respond to that.
We won't be taking it up just because it's an officer from government. We'll be taking it up because more additional staff is required in that department. We do want to make the, because of various government systems, as you're aware, by the planning committee, that if you're not efficient and if you don't do things within the required time, and if you lose appeals, and if you haven't got the right people to deal with these within those periods, you can lose your planning powers. So we need the additional staff to make our department even more efficient, and we are tight with staff. So I'm sure management will sort out and get the correct staff in there to make the department more efficient for the customer that it's dealing with.
Okay, can I just ask Maria to, obviously in the resolved item says it will be used for the planning function, so that's what the money will go.
It has to be. The extra, we have to, that's exactly what the 151 officer has to report to government, that we will sign up for this increase in fees on the premise that that additional income will be spent on improving the planning service. Details will be discussed in the coming months as to exactly how we can best do that, and that'll be obviously there'll be a change to the budgets to allow that to happen. But that's what will happen. It will be about improving the resources in-house to, you know, perhaps speed something being turned around.
Thank you. Councillor Griffin.
Thank you, Chairman. I withdraw Councillor Richard's attention to paragraph 4 on page 130, which repeats the information that Maria's just given us.
Thank you very much indeed for highlighting that, Councillor Griffin. Councillor Audio.
Yeah, my question's been answered. It's about the ring fencing of the money. Does it stay within? And that's been answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Councillor Wesley.
Thank you, Chair. I think there's two sides to this argument, and I actually do welcome it. I think, yes, obviously people that are asking for planning permission have got to pay more, but for me the important part of that is that this council can actually look after the rest of the community surrounding that planning permission. It's important that our planning officers are able to do that job, to actually safeguard what is the planning system, and I think it's really, really important that we take that on board, not just that we're charging other people for the part of the service that they're getting in doing their planning permission, but it's actually the other side of the fence for me, which is the really, really important thing.
Thanks for that observation. Thank you, Steve, for that. Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, very simply for me, the point I'd like to raise is this. As we have a vision for Daventry, and a strong vision, one over many years, it makes sense. This actually comes at just the right time, actually, because we are going to need to devote a lot of resources to planning. And obviously, the way that they've looked at this report is perfect, because it's exactly where the money should go. If we're going to help speed it up, that's what government want, then this is the right way forward, so I like that.
Very much indeed for that. Councillor Gilbert.
Just wanted to ask, because recently over the past 6 months I've been involved with issues of enforcement. It's quite clear that there are pressures there in that area. Are these funds allowed to be help resource that area as well, or is it just planning application?
Right.
It's, as long as it's linked to planning, that is all that's required. Yes, so we will be considering all that in the mix. If that is going to improve the overall planning service and allow us to get more things done, then that will be considered.
Do you think there'd be a rush before July 2017 once people know the fees are going up by 20%?
I think it will be.
No, okay.
I
Okay.
mean, yeah, unlikely.
Unlikely, okay. Never know. Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? Are you happy to agree with the resolved items?
Agree.
That concludes this evening's meeting on this go as business. Have a safe journey home. Thank you.